everybody. Baron Hoig with OneChiropractic, and we have Dr. Richard Barwell. This is our fourth session together, and we're excited to keep going down this rabbit hole. So I encourage you to watch the previous sessions again. If at any point you feel lost, go back, because we are going. I'm doing my best to hold him back, because he doesn't like going this slow on this stuff. And I appreciate your patience with me, Dr. Barwell, but we want to really release this information in a method where people can actually absorb. And so hopefully you're getting that. We appreciate your feedback on these sessions to let us know if we need to dig into a certain area more. If you have questions or things of that nature, please feel free to send those in to me. So, Doc, last time we kind of talked about the inconsistencies or incongruencies within the profession. So, what would you say are reasons why our profession hasn't grown, right? We know the effectiveness of what we do as a profession, but there's a reason. What do you think those weak links are that have stopped the growth within chiropractic?
Boy, I'll tell you, we're our own disaster area in regards to a lot of this. We narrowed down our scope of practice at chiropractic. We had some issues within the profession that continued to narrow it down to back pain and neck pain. I mean, when you narrow down your scope of what you have to offer, it's a problem, okay? And so we need to take a look at some of the weak links that created this down. And I like to look at it from the art, science, and philosophy, because that's sort of our foundation. So the weak links, we have a misdirection of the arts. And I know that there's a lot of dedicated technique masters out there that thank gosh we have them, but there is a problem that happened. We're going to discuss this. I'm going to talk about the failure of the philosophy of chiropractic. And that's I'm sure a button that I've just pushed on with a lot of people to get very upset, but we need to look at it. I'm not saying get rid of it. I'm not saying get rid of the art. I'm saying we didn't have the science. So we had lacking science. I'm saying we need all three of those, but we need all three of those things to be consistent with one another and back one another up. We haven't had that. And so we need to start taking a look at how these things fit together. So let's go to the next slide so I can talk about the first part of this. Here's one of the things that happened. This was a bunch of the presidents of chiropractic colleges. This was some time ago now. And this is what they came up with. They were talking about chiropractic. And again, you see, their focus was on chiropractic and vertebral subluxation. Mm-hmm. And so when they're going to talk about chiropractic, they talk about subluxation. And here's what they said. Subluxation is a complex of functional and or structural and or pathological or articular changes that compromise neural integrity and may influence organ system function and general health. There's a whole bunch of stuff wrong with this. Just everywhere there's something wrong with this. Well, what the heck is it? And the worst part of this thing is when it gets down to compromises neural integrity and may. Well, if you say and may, you're also saying something else. You're also saying it may not.
Right.
So when other health professionals or scientists or other people outside the profession are looking at this, they go like, what a piece of garbage this is. This doesn't say anything about it. And yet here it was in defense of the one thing that was in error to begin with, that vertebral subluxation had nerve root impingement was the cause of all disease. So it really is an issue. Can we go to the next slide? That left us put us into real challenges. Then along came the technique masters. Well, the intent of the adjustment then became to correct vertebral misalignments. Well, here's the problem with this. If that is the only thing that is involved with chiropractic, and that's a vertebral misalignment causing nerve root pressure, anything done outside of a manual adjustment of a vertebral subluxation is not a chiropractic adjustment. Oh, I take exception to that big time. Right. There's all sorts of the arts. Every technique that I have ever run across gets results, just not all the time.
Right.
And so when you talk to the vast majority of practitioners out there, you ask them what technique they have, what do they say?
Oh.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, what technique they use, they're going to say they have a manual technique or...
Yeah, I use an integrated technique.
Oh, integrated, yeah.
I use an integrated technique. Well, an integrated technique means you use a little of that and a little of this, right. And you try to ask them why they change it, and they say, I don't know, but it just seemed to be appropriate to change it at that time. Or maybe they weren't getting results and they changed it.
And that's interesting that you say that, because as you bring that up, and again, I apologize for interrupting, but
no, please.
As you say that something just clicked in my head, that the intent of the adjustment has become to correct vertebral misalignment. So, because I have a lot of friends that do best work, and that's an energy technique that is, you cannot deny what happens when people are doing that. Again, it doesn't work on everybody the same way, but you can't say that there's nothing there, because straight adjusting just did not do what this technique has done. And I've seen it through other tonal works, and just, I've been in the industry long enough to see crazy things do crazy things. But that's interesting to me that that's where a lot of people argue that, right? And I've had that argument with other doctors. Oh, that's not a real technique. And it becomes the basis in which it goes back to the slide we had in our last session, that what is our intent? Is our intent to fix vertebral subluxations? Is our intent to fix leg length? And then because of how we're have the basis of intent, that's how we start alienate our own peers. And what I love about what we're talking about here is, if our intent is to cause neurological change, that opens that up, right? And it says, listen, if that's what we're doing, we don't have to be as judgmental about the technique down the street that we think is crazy because we don't understand it and do it. But what I find interesting, and I just had this with a colleague, it's a crazy technique until you have someone in your family that's not responding to anything else, and then you're willing to give it a shot, and then it works, and your mind's blown, right? And that just happened, where they were like, well, that kind of stuff's kind of crazy. I don't want to do that in my office, until they had a family member that had some stuff going on. And so it's interesting to me that we love to put things in boxes because we can control it, we can understand it. But yeah, man, it all boils down to that question of, what is our intent? What is our purpose? That's very
the only reason any technique works is because that technique aligns with the neurological needs of the patient, and it changes the central nervous system function, which changes the outcome. Yeah. When you change the intent, you change the outcome. When you change the intent, you change the outcome. Change the intent of chiropractic, you're going to change the outcome and how we measure it. And we're going to break free of all of the stuff that has limited us. So most technique master foundations are based on results, not on how they work. They get results with that technique. They were using it in their office. It started working for them. And because they were the special thing in the adjustment that they did, that they came in with that positive energy of themselves, knowing it worked. And then they started teaching that. And it seems that the students are never, ever quite as good as the master.
Right.
Until they change it just a little bit, and it becomes their technique.
That's right.
And now they teach that. And I'm not knocking the technique masters. I'm knocking
just the fact that nature. Yeah,
how it all sort of fit together. The vast majority of chiropractors develop a diversified technique approach, because not one technique works for everybody. And you have people that are masters in special techniques, like specific upper cervical, like Grostic techniques, you name it. That's great. I'm glad they're masters in it. But I'll guarantee you that they do not get 100%.
Right. And
even if they get 99%, they could probably improve on that if they could understand a little more about the neurological influence and what they're doing. This is where we run into things like the accuracy of the vector and so on.
Right.
It gets down to minutia, but it all follows the same path. So B.J. Palmer, the most well-studied technique master, he changed his method many times. Mm-hmm. Many times. He caused a furor within the profession because everybody tried to follow him, and he'd come back to the next lyceum and do something different. They'd all go, "Oh yeah, I can't do this. You're crazy." But he was a true scientist in the sense that he was always searching, always searching. Unfortunately, he had the profession surrounding him, which was enough to drive anybody crazy. Right. So as the profession moved towards the mechanical model, the technique started to follow. And the reason the profession moved towards the mechanical model was because it was the only area that we could use as sort of a science to say, well, we can measure your posture and show your posture's improved. We can measure the curves in your neck and show you that they improve. And so those techniques tended to follow in that particular direction. And that was my challenge with the arts. There's some, spinal network analysis. Donnie Epstein, that's chiropractic. Mm-hmm. That's chiropractic.
I agree.
So is activator and integrator and best and light touch techniques, you name it. As long as your intent of chiropractic is to get in there with whatever you do to stimulate sensory input to change central nervous system and be able to measure pre and post, you're doing chiropractic.
So let me ask you this question then, because it is interesting. that our profession, has stayed on this philosophical stance, but then we get so married to the art. So why does the profession have this philosophy then, if it boils down to you've got to do it our way? So where does the philosophy fit into all this?
Oh, good question. That's the problem that BJ created. You see? So the philosophy challenge is this. Chiropractic is based on a vitalistic philosophy. And as I said earlier on, you've got to understand the opposition to vitalism comes from the so-called scientific reductionist group. Well, of course they're not going to accept it because it doesn't fit into their model. And because it doesn't fit into their model, it can't further their model. So they're going to reject it. Now, their only ground is they say, well, it's unscientific. This collider thing that they've got in Switzerland?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what that thing's doing?
No.
That's exploring the vitalistic nature of the universe.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, you think about it. They're taking the atom and they're reducing it down to the parts of the atom. They were looking for the God particle. Well, they found the God particle. Well, they called the God particle at the time because every time they tried to find it, it disappeared. And now it only lasts for a nanosecond. But if that isn't vitalistic, I don't know what is.
Right.
And so, we have to just stop saying that's not scientific if it's vitalistic and say, no, that's our wonderful word that makes us search.
Mm-hmm.
It makes us ask the question, why does this work? Because if we don't accept why did this work and we just accept that medicine's the answer, then we have no place here.
Right.
And does medicine work? No, medicine is failing big time. We have more people sick now than we've ever had before. We have more diseases. When I graduated, the compendium of diseases was about that thick. You can see my fingers. It was about 1.5 inches thick. Now it's volumes.
Yeah, right.
And they're caused because of the medical model. So we need to get back to this. We need, and I had to really sort of bite my cheek when I read that, like, for instance, Life University is part of the Rubicon group, which believes that chiropractic is a vitalistic field.
Right.
And this person said, well, Heidi Habig's work needs to be all thrown out because she's aligned herself with the vitalistic university. I want to punch this person.
Yeah.
I really do. I just like, how stupid a situation is that? Here's somebody who is more qualified than this person ever is to talk about human neurology. I mean, she's a PhD published in some of the highest accepted articles in science. I mean, who else has ever had that happen in chiropractic?
That's a lot like saying that, I grew up in the Barry Sanders era of football and saying that I'm going to hate Barry Sanders and deny his ability to be a running back because he plays for the Lions and I'm a Pittsburgh fan. Right? I mean, that's
the same logic.
What we're saying.
Yep, same logic.
Yeah, and it's got to stop, right? I mean, and it works on both ways, right? I actually had someone just get really all mad and ticked off because Lou Sportelli spoke at a philosophical event and saying, well, why would that philosophical ever allow Lou Sportelli to talk? He's with NCMIC and they hate chiropractic. And I'm like, we got to stop. Like, why wouldn't you want those people on more philosophical campuses, right? It's not like he's going to contaminate the philosophy. It's that maybe he's going to be the whole thing cracks me up, and we've got to just stop doing that type of stuff. I
got to tell you, he's softened his position. I was talking to him not long ago, and I was kind of surprised.
Oh,
he's moving a little bit the other direction. He's softened up too, because by having him come and talk and being able to ask him questions, we get an exchange, and we're going to move one another.
Listen,
we're going to meet somewhere in the middle. And I hate that song, but
yeah, I hear you, dude. But I use it. I mean, everyone knows where I stand with my faith with God, but it's the same thing that Christ taught. He's like, he didn't teach the apostles to sit in a group by themselves. He wanted them out with the sinners. He wanted them out. I mean, if Christ was alive today, he'd be in the bars and he would be hanging. We love to judge, and we judge from a distance because it's safe and no one challenges us. And God forbid our keyboard cowboys that we have in our world now that just spew stuff out through the social medias, but won't ever do anything face to face. You know who I'm talking about, and I'm not going to say their name on this, but it's frustrating to me. Why wouldn't we want to invite all of these people in and have conversations? Because if you believe in your truth, then why wouldn't you want to have an opportunity to share that truth with someone that doesn't? Right? And either you're going to be right or you're going to learn something about yourself that makes you a better version of yourself, right? We've got to just we've got to invite this stuff in. So I agree with you. All these guys that want to judge based on Heidi was sponsored by somebody or something, so that makes her stuff not viable. Screw you. I don't have time.
Yeah, we need to say, look, wait, you're not making any sense. So, excuse me a sec. So the philosophy of chiropractic was actually developed to differentiate the practice of chiropractic from that of medicine. Chiropractors were going to jail for practicing medicine without a license. And the bright guys sat down and they came up with a philosophy to prove to the judge that it was not the practice of medicine, that it was different. And that's the reason we exist today. That was the reason behind the philosophy. It wasn't there to create a dogmatic profession that said, this is it, it's never going to change. No, those principles that were developed have a lot of great stuff in it, but now when it comes down to looking at the vertebral subluxation, and we know that the nerve root is not involved, we need to adapt that with the new science that's available. It strengthens the philosophy, it doesn't weaken. And I'm a chiropractor that believes that you have to have an art, a science, and a philosophy. I've always believed that. I will always believe that until I die. So the challenge is not with the focus. Whoops, there was a bit there in the end. The challenge is not, yeah, you're fast on the button there. The challenge is not to focus on the neurological construct, but rather the lack of evidence of the nerve root involvement. It's not with the lack of the focus on that. It's just we need to get off of the nerve root involvement. That's what we have to let go of. And if we can let go of the nerve root involvement, but keep the importance of the vertebral subluxation as an entry for the nervous system to change, we're hanging in there. We're all right, and this time we're on solid ground. So the concept was right. The application, based on the knowledge of 120 years ago, was not right. So that's where we stand.
Well, that's awesome, and I love it. And I think if people would get out of their own head and listen to this information for the way that it's being presented, I think you'd be hard pressed to be able to deny it. And that's the purpose of this, right? We want to get everyone on a common scheme moving forward. So listen, man, this stuff's great. I love it. Dr. Browell, thank you so much again for your willingness to break this down into small chunks. And we're going to keep moving forward. Our next session, we're going to dig even a little bit deeper into this rabbit hole. So don't give up on us again. Keep going through this process and be sharing this. As you are, there's new things opening up in your mind. We want you to share this with other people. This has got to be like an infestation in our profession. We need to be sharing this stuff all over. That's why we're not charging for this. We're making it free. We're putting it out there. Dr. Barr was donating his time. And the other people we're going to be having in these sessions moving forward, this is all because we see a bigger purpose for what we're trying to do in our profession. So we appreciate you watching. We hope you keep watching through this series, but God bless your day, and we'll talk to you soon.